Hey everybody, it's Generation Orange. You know the show by now. I'm your co-host, Sean Ringrose, and my co-host is...
Segovia, what's going on, boy?
What's up, Mark Segovia, who's also a co-host of...
Blanca Podcast every Tuesday at 7:30 in Spanish and English right afterwards.
Exactly what he said. La Banca, right? That's what it is.
La Banca Podcast, yeah.
Nice. Anyways, we're talking, if you don't know, we talk Houston soccer, essentially. We'll talk a little world soccer, a little bit of MLS, but mostly focus on Houston soccer. Look, we got plenty to get into tonight. We're going to talk Dash. We're going to talk MLS a little bit. We're going to talk, everybody knows about it. We're going to talk the European Super League, or what was going to be the European Super League, I guess, at this point. And then we'll close out with some Dynamo talk. But, Mark, how are you? How was your week? How was the initial opening match victory parade at the Segovia household?
Man, everything was great. This week's been good, really good. The opening game match was awesome, except for the rain, but it's still even more awesome the fact that, a lot of people were out there during those conditions to go support the Dynamo in the opening match. Really good first game. Happy for Memo scoring the first goal of the season. Happy for Ureta getting that first goal out the way for him on a new club. Should look great. A lot of the new guys look great. Boniek looks like a defender of the year candidate in one game. Man, but just overall good past week, man. How about yourself?
It's been I had a bit of a rough week kind of earlier in the week after, like Sunday and Monday. Just a lot of personal stuff dealing with, and then things picked up kind of Monday evening, Tuesday morning, and so things have been good ever since. And work's going well. Can't complain about work. So really not much else to report. But I tell you what, I am looking forward to is obviously the Dynamo playing on Saturday up at Portland. Going to be a real test, and I think this is honestly the first real test for the team this season. We'll see how that goes, but. First, like I said, let's talk some Dash, man. Out there proving some stuff to the league and to detractors, if you will. Jake, I'm sure will love. By the way, hello, Jake. Hi, Jake. Jake's in chat tonight. Jake, a huge Dash supporter, huge Dynamo supporter. What was that?
Jake from State Farm.
Jake from State Farm. Jake from Hawaii. Not direct from Hawaii, but yeah, not direct from Hawaii, but Hawaii all the same. Mahalo ohana. And then so the Dash have they just played against Seattle, and one of the key things about that match, and it's the same thing that we talked about when they faced Chicago. Drake from State Farm. Oh, that's even funnier. We were talking about on the last show how much the Dash missed their international and U.S. women's national team attackers. Rachel Daly, Nichelle Prince, Sam Mewis. Technically, you can throw Chapman in there. You can even throw Sophie Schmidt in there. Look, they had six national team and international team players out for most of the preseason, and then the first two matches of the season. Well, they're back, and. So talking about that Dash and Seattle match, the takeaways I had, the defense actually played really well. They held their own. It was a 0-0 draw. Seattle are by no means a slouch of an attacking team. They've got plenty of talent on attack. Holding them to a 0-0 draw is a big deal. They did the same thing against Chicago, 0-0 draw. But that, this defense being this good has definitely become a hallmark of this team. And it really feels and kind of harkens back to, to the early Dynamo years when our defenses were just, they were brick walls. You weren't getting through that defense. And if you did, you were feeling it that night and the next day. You weren't getting through without some physical punishment. Look, Katie Naughton, Megan Oyster, and Chapman on the outside, as well as Prissock, who played really well in her two starts. And a number of other players, Haley Hansen, that have filled in those outside back slots and elsewhere along the line. They've just brought that level of defense up. It was a struggle prior to them getting here. And then once they were here, it was clear that this defense was getting better. And now it's to the point that it is one of, if not the best defense in NWSL. They haven't surrendered a goal yet in 2 matches so far. And some of the credit does go to Jane Campbell's backup, who also was out on international duty with the U.S. women's national team, to Lindsay Harris, who has played absolutely phenomenal in Jane Campbell's stead. She was even up for Save of the Week in week 1. And, she had a couple of decent saves against Seattle that should not be overlooked either. Lindsay Harris really, to me, has become a hallmark of what this team is about, which is when someone is out, whether it's for international duty or it's for injury or otherwise, it is next person up, next player up. And Lindsay Harris took that role of goalkeeper, and she really has made a claim for potentially taking that past this season. So what I want to ask you, Mark, not so much about the match, but we talked a little bit about Lindsay Harris last week as goalkeeper. If you're the Dash and you're looking at the end of 2020, at the end of 2021 season, no matter how you finish all of that, do you keep Jane Campbell and trade away Lindsay Harris as an asset, potentially for some pretty good return on your investment there? Or do you look to keep Lindsay Harris, who is not a U.S. women's national team allocated player, in exchange for maybe letting Jane Campbell or sending Jane Campbell to another team where you may get a slightly higher return on your investment in that case? Who are you keeping if you have to choose between the two of them?
Obviously, with it just being 2 games and her having 2 clean sheets is a great start for her. Obviously, I want to see a longer stretch of games with her, to have a more clear sense of what she really is, and nothing against her. Obviously, she's doing a great job in Campbell's place. But yeah, obviously she's a little bit younger, or I'm not sure what the ages are, but I'm sure she's younger, and she's more under our control than what Jane Campbell is because of the fact that, she's a women's national team player. She gets allocated. So I think I would keep Harris and see what I can get for Campbell, obviously, because you don't have to worry so much unless she gets to that level where she starts getting selected by the U.S. women's national team, right? But at this point in time, obviously Campbell being able to be allocated to different teams, and obviously all the call-ups with the Olympics coming up, the She Believes Cups, the World Cup, coming up, all the other friendlies that are coming up here pretty soon in the next couple of years. And I'm sure Jane is going to be part of all those. I don't see her level dipping anytime soon. I think she's at the peak of her powers, her career at this moment. So if Harris can continue showing out like the way she is in clean sheets like this, obviously I'm not expecting every game, but for 6 weeks for the month, things. I would keep Harris and let Campbell go.
Okay. Just FYI, Mark, you were breaking up just a little bit there. I got what you were saying, but you were breaking up. Yeah, I was. I thought Nestor just said in chat, Mark, you're getting cut. And I was like, damn, just like that. You're out, bro. Done. The reason I asked the question is it's pretty clear, right? You're gonna have to make the decision at some point. Is it Harris? Is it Campbell? I don't know what the Dash desire. I'm sure if they could figure it out, they would keep both. Never hurts to have a quality backup that clearly could be a starter. But I think at the same time, you have to respect Lindsay Harris as someone who is going to want to start somewhere. And if it's not going to be for you, then you need to be able to give her that opportunity elsewhere. And you're going to get a good return. It doesn't matter if it's Lindsay Harris. It doesn't matter if it's Jane Campbell. The difference between the two is Jane Campbell has more of the air quote star power because of the U.S. women's national team starts that she's had, the call-ups that she's had. And in my opinion, you leverage that. You don't know how much longer Jane Campbell is going to be that goalkeeper. You don't know how much longer you're going to be able to rely on having her as a U.S. women's national team allocated player. And what I mean by that is Campbell is going to get opportunities with the national team again at some point, probably during the Olympics is my guess. And if she does, during that point, and if she shows out, then as an allocated national team player, it is very likely she may just get allocated to another team. NWSL has done that multiple times before, so why hope that that's not the case and get nothing in return when you can go ahead and work on trading her? There are going to be teams clamoring for the opportunity for a starting goalkeeper, the quality of a Jane Campbell, and keep Lindsay Harris, who you've already seen is quality enough to be a starting goalkeeper in front of this back line. Now that's the key. If you can keep this back line in the shape that it's in and in the trend that it is in, which is going up, I think it's definitely one of those times where you have to kind of figure out what is best for you. But again, consider the opportunity if you can to trade Jane Campbell. U.S. Women's National Team player is always going to net you at least a good return. Whereas Lindsay Harris, if you're trying to respect her wishes, which I'm sure she wants to have an opportunity to at least compete for a starting role somewhere else, then maybe you consider that. The other thing I want to throw out there, real quick, Mark, just before you chime in, Lindsay Harris is that type of player that is quintessential to what this team is about. A player who grits and grinds their way through matches, who has gritted and grinded their way through college soccer, and who is doing exactly what you've asked, which is when the opportunity has arisen, she rose to the occasion and proved she is good enough. And if James Clarkson wants that to be a hallmark of what the Dash are about, then he needs to prove it by offering her that opportunity if they can manage to make it work out. And I have no doubt they could if they wanted to. Go ahead, Mark.
I like what Jake's in the chat. Obviously, and it's going back to what I said first and foremost, that I'm not at a comfortable stage at the moment to make that decision right now as far as Harris over Campbell, because obviously we've only seen her for 2 games, and I think that, she's had a great 2 games. I think the fact that this season will tell us a lot about her, especially because she's going to have a lot of opportunity to start for goalkeeping for the Dash, because of international duties for Campbell. So we'll see how it goes. Obviously I want to be as optimistic as possible, and I want Harris to be just, a great goalkeeper for us, and I guess you get kind of best of both worlds, because that Jane Campbell's going to be going back and forth between national team duties and being a Dash goalkeeper. So, you get to have both ladies, as your goalkeeper for the season, because of the quantity of matches that are coming up for the United States Women's National Team. So it'll be great to see both of them, just like competing at each other, trying to one up each other for the most part. And like I said, I mean, it's if she shows out and she's holding her own and she's basically on par with Campbell, and depending on how everything goes next season, with and how you want to approach things, because like I said, I mean, I'm not in the business of selling players off either, especially our foundational players and star players who are marketable for us, because I mean, to have a United States Women's National Team player on your squad is always good for marketing, good for putting butts in seats, and things of that nature. I mean, she might not be the starting goalkeeper, but but they know who she is. We all know who she is, and we all know what she's done for the Dash, as of late, obviously, and how much of a figure she was to capture that Challenge Cup trophy last season, So I don't think it's one of those things where I feel that the Dash need to be in some kind of rush to do it. I mean, but if something comes up that's really juicy and and can benefit the Dash as a whole, then I see why not. But at this moment, I wouldn't be in a rush to. I want to see more Harris and see what she's capable of, and see what her actual level is. Because anybody can have a good 2 games,
Sure.
So, but once you can put a string of weeks, maybe months, maybe have a whole season of great goalkeeping, then we can talk about like, oh, okay, we got something here.
Yeah, and like I said, the only reason I brought that up, again, I'm looking more at the when the off season rolls around, not so much during the season here, but there is the reality that, again, allocation slots are not an automatic given for any team, and at some point NWSL is going to balance them back out again, some way, somehow. I don't know how, but we'll see. Sometimes they just assign allocation slots and nobody's ready for it. So it's entirely plausible that we could see Campbell just move somewhere else without the Dash getting any return on that investment. And so, it's something that has to be at the back of their minds. I'm not saying it needs to be at the forefront of their minds right now, but it's something they need to consider and they need to be planning for, and not just hoping it never happens. With that being said, let's move on to a Dash versus KC preview of the match coming up on Monday. What a weird day and time for a NWSL match. Daly, so we get back. Rachel Daly's back. Christy Mewis is back. Nichelle Prince is back. Alicia Chapman is back. Sophie Schmidt is back, and of course Jane Campbell is now back. And they will likely all start, or Prince may not start. I'd be surprised if she didn't. They may all start on Monday, given that they'll have about a full week's worth of time back with the team prior to the next match. That's a huge boost to the attack, which has clearly struggled, missing Rachel Daly, missing Christy Mewis, missing Nichelle Prince, missing Alicia Chapman, missing Sophie Schmidt. So it's look, the struggle we've had, in my opinion, has really been that link between the center of the pitch in front of the defense and then moving that into the attack in the center of the pitch or out wide. And clearly, when you get players the level of a Rachel Daly, the level of a Christy Mewis, the level of a Sophie Schmidt, a Nichelle Prince, or an Alyssa Chapman, you're talking about improving in those areas specifically that you feel you need to improve. The one thing I think we need to be careful of going into the KC match, and this is more for Jake, is Amy Rodriguez. You have to, from a defensive perspective, you have to mark her, you have to mark her well, and you have to ensure that she doesn't get those opportunities, mental lapse opportunities. Now, the good news is, of course, we've got our center back pairing of Naughton and Oyster. We know how good our outside backs are. I'm not overly concerned about Amy Rodriguez going into this KC match, but it's definitely something to keep in mind. But look, I mean, this is going to be the first time that the national team players have been back together for the Dash in just about 4 to 5 weeks, it feels like, if not longer. And so getting them back, there is going to be a little bit of an adjustment, but I do think we see some really good moments going into this KC match, and I'm looking forward to it. Look, I'm going to go out on a prediction limb here, and I'm going to say this is going to be a 2-0 Dash victory. I feel like there will be some nervy moments, late in the match where KC are pushing to try and find a goal somehow, some way. But I feel like the ladies just step up and secure the clean sheet for the third clean sheet in a row, which in the NWSL, that's a big deal. So that's my prediction. Jake, feel free to throw your prediction out in chat. Mark, any ideas on a prediction? I'm sure you're just kind of going, I don't know.
No. I mean, like I said, I dedicated myself since last season to pay attention a little bit more to the Dash, and I have, I like a lot of the great points that you bring up, and as far as like the returning national team players to our squad, I'm not really expecting all of them to get playing time. I think you don't want to rush them all, especially them coming from where they're coming from and doing that stuff. I mean, I do expect some of them to get some quality minutes, especially as first subs in. I do expect Campbell to be the starting goalkeeper, though. If that be, yeah, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go 3-1 Dash. I don't know about the clean sheet, but I'm gonna go 3-1 Dash. So. We'll see. Hopefully, I think we all predicted wins here. Both of y'all predicted clean sheets, but I'm going to go 3-1, and that obviously puts the Dash in a very nice position with 5 points, from the first 3 games.
Yeah, for sure. So that's the end of our Dash talk tonight. We're keeping it a little short because we're only going until 9 o'clock, so it's about an hour and a half. Let's roll into some world notes real quick. Of course, the only really big world note right now that everybody's talking about, and everybody has an opinion on, is the European Super League, or the death thereof, as it was made clear today that pretty much all teams have withdrawn from the European Super League, and they're going to go back to the drawing board to just, to figure out all the very important. It wasn't the UEFA; it was just European, because UEFA had nothing to do with it, and that's why it failed. At least if you ask UEFA. But the reality is this is a big deal because there were 12 very large clubs across Europe that basically were willing to withdraw themselves from UEFA competitions, which includes UEFA, the UEFA European League, UEFA Champions League. Thank you. Champions League is the one I couldn't think of, and UEFA Europa League too. That counts both of them, along with the other related UEFA smaller competitions. Their federations from the different leagues that are the different teams that came out and supported this and said that they were going to be, the founders of this league, came out and basically said, if these teams do this, we will remove them from our leagues, which was a really big, huge hurdle. Which means that they would have no actual league competition other than the air quote Super League, European Super League. And then also to the point, even their federations came out and said, the national federations came out and said, hey, look, if these teams do this, we're not going to let their players play in any UEFA sanctioned competitions. We're not going to let them play in any, Federation Cup competitions. They're not going to be able to play in their national teams. They were basically very much strong-arming from a federation and from a league standpoint that these teams were not going to be in a position to throw their weight around because they're the big teams. So, Mark, I want to ask you this question. What is, in your opinion, what was the driving force between the European Super League discussion and the decisions that were made by these big clubs? And then why do you think it fell apart so quickly?
Well, the driving force, obviously, with anything in the world of soccer today is money. No. So, I mean, obviously a lot of these clubs, well, the stance or the way Florentino Perez stated it, who was going to be the president of this Europa Super League, was that, these 12 founding member clubs, or 15, depending on, which other list you saw or which the 3 other clubs that were going to be included, they provide at least 50% of the fan base around the world. They provide at least 50% of the revenue all over the world, soccer, merch, things of that nature. And they feel that they need to be compensated properly. The sad thing about this situation was that, they're battling up against UEFA and FIFA, which we both are in agreement, and I think everybody else on here is in agreement that they're no angels themselves either. So, they have a long history of corruption as well, and so it's kind of devil versus devil here in this battle of wits. And unfortunately, the reason I think that the European Super League disintegrated as quickly as it did is because they came in at the wrong way, man. They threw it out there. They just said they basically said, here it is, whether you like it or not. It just Sunday night the news popped out. Hey, all founding members, the biggest clubs in the world, they're gonna create this big Super League. It's gonna be backed by big banks, billions of dollars. $400 million fee money, $400 million given to each club just for being a participant in this club, in this league, which for those who don't know, that's 4 times the amount the Champions League makes winning the Champions League. So, with all that being said, obviously that money does a lot of work for those clubs, especially for those clubs that they feel that they provide 50% plus amount of revenue for the whole world of soccer, that they provide 50% plus of viewership from fans around the world, which there's no denying. I mean, those 12 clubs are the biggest clubs in the world. We're all fans of those clubs, all rivals of those clubs. But, the way it was portrayed and the way that they were just trying to, it was all about them and no worries about the rest of the leagues and all the small clubs and all the lower tier levels of soccer and around the world, especially in Europe. It just smelled of arrogance. I'm sorry. And obviously, to that notion, I think everybody was like, nah. And you saw the uproar. You saw the fans come out, especially in England, come out ready to let go of generations of fandom for those clubs. And we're talking about generations, people whose great grandfathers followed Chelsea, Arsenal, Manchester United, clubs of that nature. They were ready to give up on those clubs. And I'll give credit where credit is due. I'll give a round of applause to those clubs especially City and Chelsea, for those, for being the first two to say, you know what, we're going to opt out. This is not what we signed up for, whatever. And we're going to opt out. This is not the route we're trying to take. Now, does this mean this is the end forever for the Super League? No, I don't think so. I think there will be a different approach later on in the future. I think it's something that needs to be more organized and dealt with along with UEFA. I think the thing is here that I think if we're looking at a silver lining from this event, is that the clubs, the presidents of all these big clubs, they want UEFA to be more transparent. There's so much money involved with the UEFA Champions League, Europa League, Euros, obviously the FIFA World Cup, any FIFA sanctioned tournament, right? There's a lot of money involved in these tournaments, and these clubs are compensated. Nobody wants to open books up because nobody really wants to show, is really involved.
Yeah, you're breaking up again, Mark.
Go ahead, Sean. I think I'm cutting up a little bit.
Yeah, you definitely are breaking up, bro.
Yeah.
I know I'm gonna get so much flack for this. I just know it. But I actually was one of the people who was a strong supporter of the European Super League concept. And I agree with everything you said. I do actually agree with it. However, I think there's a caveat to this that a lot of people aren't taking into consideration. Number one, it's very easy for FIFA, UEFA, and these federations to say, oh, these clubs are doing it because they're the big clubs and they don't want competition. Yeah, that's horse crap. That's not why they're doing it. That has nothing to do with not wanting competition. They absolutely do want the competition. The reason they're doing it is because UEFA continues to shove down their throats, and these, again, are the biggest clubs in Europe, shoves down their throats these ideas that they have to play more matches every season than anybody else in UEFA. And the amount they get compensated for those extra matches that they have to play does not equate to how many extra matches they have to play. And the competition level that they have to play at in order to maintain that top status within their individual leagues. There's a reason why Real Madrid and Barcelona spend as much money every offseason and every summer transfer or winter transfer window as they do. It's because they have to in order to be able to compete at the highest level in Champions League and in La Liga. There's a reason that these top Premier League teams are spending as much money as they are, is because they have to in order to stay at the top of their league. And as much as UEFA wants to tout and FIFA wants to tout and these federations want to tout that these big clubs just don't want the competition, no, it's the fact that for the last 50 some odd years, if not longer, they've had this whole Champions League concept shoved down their throat, and every few years there's additional matches added. They're adding an additional, 16 teams to the total of number of teams that make it into the competition now?
Adding an additional, I believe that they're thinking about going up to 8 more teams.
8 more teams. Yeah, it's 30 now, and I think they're going to go up to 38. That doesn't sound like much, but they're changing the format. And it's going to add an additional 2 to 3 matches. That doesn't sound like much, but that's in addition to your already very stacked season schedules. And especially in the pandemic, if you return to the pandemic time, which we're still in, people, hello, these teams are having to deal with more than they were dealing with before COVID hit. And they're having to deal with things that they weren't having to even think about before. It's a different situation if we're pre-pandemic right now, because it's adding those extra matches is not a big deal. But right now they had to shorten so many league seasons in order to even fit them in and condense them down. There were times that there were teams in certain leagues at the top of their league playing 3 matches in a single week. And that is not healthy and not good for the players. And it's not fair to the teams that are the top teams in the league. It's just like the teams that right now are having to play CCL when their leagues are currently playing. Now, granted, to MLS, give them a little bit of credit. They did give a little bit of leeway for, I don't remember which team it was, that was it RSL that didn't have to play? They've got a bye week this week, I believe. No, they had a bye week last week. Somebody has one this week at Columbus, I think, because they've got more CCL to play. But it's not equitable, right? The other teams are still playing their matches in MLS play. So where is my whole point to this is the fact that for everything UEFA, FIFA, and the federations want to say about the clubs, the reality is it's the pot calling the kettle black. The fact is, go ahead.
No, and like I said, like I mentioned, I mean, I don't know what parts cut off from me when I was talking, but yeah, it's devil versus devil, right?
It absolutely is.
And these clubs, they want more transparency. They did, and they deserve it. They bring in the big bucks. Adding that, the fact that UEFA or even FIFA, because FIFA is expanding the World Cup, which is something I'm totally against. But UEFA expanding the Champions League, something I'm totally against. You're watering down the competition. That's what you're doing.
Yeah.
On top of that, and then on top of that, I don't care to see Barcelona versus some team and Austria or whatever, and the group stages. I don't care about seeing 2-3 more games like that,
Yeah.
Exactly. I'm going to watch because I'm a Barcelona fan, right? But the fact of the matter is, put more money up. There's plenty of money, sponsorship deals, whatever, into this Champions League. This is why they were going with the Super League, because all the money they were going to make off TV rights, off sponsorship deals, off partnership deals, XYZ. This is basic marketing for those who don't know. Think about it. Just from a U.S. standpoint.
Yeah.
NBC Peacock paid $1 billion for Premier League rights. That's just in the United States.
Yep.
You're not taking into consideration all other countries in the world, all the big countries in the world, and not even or even the local deals that they have in their own country. So there's money up the wazoo in the world of soccer.
Yep.
So they just wanted more transparency. They want more money involved, and I love the fact that you said teams like Real Madrid and Barcelona, the reason they spend the way they spend, the reason they're always the top 2 teams in any list, Forbes summer transfer winning spending, is because they have to. That's the role they play in this pyramid of soccer. They're the big dogs.
Yeah.
But for all the spending they're doing, not being compensated right back for it. If they win the Champions League, that's $100 million. $100 million. You know what?
That doesn't even cover one player usually on the transfer fees. Maybe two if they're lucky.
Look at the players they've bought for over $100 million. Exactly. I mean, think about it. These release clauses are just going up and up and up and up and up.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, you got to pay the wages for this player.
Yep.
And then on top of that, you're probably paying agent fees, parental fees, or whatever, other fees. Just fees on top of fees on top of fees. And these clubs are suffering. You think the Financial Fair Play Act, which I think is a bunch of poop, for the top level clubs, because Barcelona is in a $1.5 billion debt or deficit or whatever, but they allow them to spend and keep going into that debt because they make so much back in revenue throughout the year on a regular year, right? Not COVID year, right? So that's allowable. Like this happens when something like a pandemic happens and it kills their revenue and their income. This is what they're stuck with a huge ass debt and a huge ass wage bill.
Yeah. And again, the reason I was for this European Super League concept is because honestly, I am so anti-FIFA and anti-UEFA. Look, there's no doubt about the corruption in both of those, both of those federations, both of those organizations. There's no doubt about the amount of money that is coming in and how little of it actually trickles out to the clubs and the players respectively. And it was a chance for someone to, we've talked about this before. It was a chance for someone in the world of soccer to stand up to FIFA and stand up to UEFA. And they did it. These teams were ready to make the plunge, and they had agreed that they were going to pull out. And it was the fan backlash against it that prevented it from happening. And I get the fan backlash. I do. I understand, where they were coming from. But at the same time, I flip it around and I say, did the fans really understand what was actually happening? Or were they just looking and seeing that, oh, this is a cash grab by these teams, when in reality, it can be viewed that way, but can it be fairly viewed that way? And I think a lot of fans just jump to the conclusion that, oh, it's just the big team, so they want to get more money. They don't want the extra competition from the lower clubs. But like you said, I'm tired of seeing Barcelona versus Slovenian team A from their, I can't even pronounce the name, Ludogorets. I'm tired of seeing Ludogorets. I am so tired of Ludogorets. Like, why do I want to watch a team like Ludogorets play against a team like Man City, Tottenham, Chelsea, Barcelona, Real Madrid, and yet I have to watch it year after year after year because it's just the way the Champions League is.
Yeah, I mean, it's a shame, and I think the fact is that they.
Mark, you're cutting out pretty bad. I'm gonna recommend you disconnect and then reconnect on video and audio too to see if it fixes your issue. But good point, Mark. No, I'm just kidding. I didn't hear you. I don't think we can hear anything of what you said. Pretty sure you just froze out anyways. Well, we're going to move on from Super League discussion. I think we've talked about that plenty. I want to talk about MLS notes real quick. We've got just a few that I want to run through. Mark's not here, so I guess I get to just run through them, which is yay fun. So obviously my big note, and this is just because it's kind of making me laugh, made me chuckle to see this, but Chicharito actually did something for LA Galaxy in their opener, scoring that goal. It was an impressive goal, don't get me wrong, but Chicharito, where'd that come from? I haven't seen that from him in a while. Then of course we moved to the Seattle match versus Minnesota. Did Minnesota just not realize the season started? Were they still in preseason mode? Seattle destroyed them 4-0, 4-0, man. Are you kidding me? And Seattle never looked like they were not in control of that match. Every moment, if he does, Nestor. It's no big deal. But in no moment of that match did it feel like Seattle was not in control of that match. Minnesota never looked in that match. It was so crazy. Then you have Montreal, suddenly a dark horse candidate for MLS Cup contenders. I mean, they looked absolutely brilliant in the attack against, notching 4 goals against Toronto FC, a team that a lot of pundits had very highly in their power rankings. Then, of course, we move on to Atlanta. Atlanta playing against Orlando. Atlanta pulling out a 0-0 draw against Orlando doesn't sound great when you think about how much firepower Atlanta theoretically has between Josef Martinez, Cubo Torres, and a host of other players, Ezekiel Barco. But the fact is, there's my beautiful face. I love it. Atlanta has a really good defense, and it's kind of confusing because it's not what I pegged Atlanta as. But something to take a thought about is Atlanta's defense really as good as we saw, or is it maybe the fact that Orlando's offense just needs some time to figure some things out? Orlando has a lot of good attacking players, especially now. With Pato coming in, it's hard to say, but I would like to think that maybe Orlando's offense just needs some time, and the next time those two teams meet, it's going to be a different story. Finally, my MLS notes, and this one, everybody's going to love it. Austin proved they absolutely are not good enough to stand toe-to-toe with LAFC, and once LAFC decided to take the match, they did so very strongly, in my opinion. Austin is going to struggle to score goals this season. I wanted to call this out because all of the pundits, every analyst you looked at, had Austin higher than the Dynamo, had Austin even higher than FC Dallas. Following their loss to LAFC, a lot of pundits and analysts are backtracking, and they're reducing the hype on Austin just a little bit and saying maybe they're not as good as we thought they were going to be. How could you look at this team on paper knowing full well players coming into MLS from outside of MLS usually have a period of transition, and it's usually not the very first moment. It takes time. Am I still on? Nestor, are we good? I'm starting to wonder now because it just said welcome to the chat room. Oh, okay, cool. Awesome. Great. Thanks. So it's interesting to me how much plaudits and how much, thank you, Jake, how much plaudits that Austin got. They hadn't played a single match, and yet they were basically handed the, requisite, oh, you're the new, golden child, the new darling of the league, you're going to do well. Look, they're going to score goals at some point. They're going to figure that out. But until then, that team didn't look that good to me. That team did not look like a team that were going to compete for anything more than maybe a playoff spot if they're lucky. And their defense cracked at some point. They're going to continue to crack at some point throughout the season. I'm just going to be shocked to see if Austin finish above both the Dynamo and Dallas. And speaking of Dallas, of course, FC Frisco played against Colorado in a brilliant 0-0 showing as well. Frankly, I don't really have much to say about that match. It was boring. Neither team looked like they wanted to win that match. What else can you say? With that being said, hopefully Mark returns because it is time, with all of the MLS notes that I've run through, it is time for Dynamo Talk. I'm excited for this because I have tons of notes. So, obviously, the Dynamo played San Jose on Friday. My big notes from that match were, of course, the amazing partnership that we can already see developing after really, truly just one match. Between Memo and Maxi Urruti. Look, I said it. Maxi Urruti was going to be a big player for this team, and a lot more than people were giving him credit for. His style of play meshes so well with what Tab wants to do tactically, and especially from that position. Urruti is the absolute quintessential holding forward up top that can drop the ball to an attacker coming from the midfield or coming from out wide. He's also the type, and you saw it on Friday, even though he didn't get the quick turn and goal, he can turn and hit that goal on a regular basis. And he can do that pulling one defender off himself. Memo's going to pull defenders the other way. And let's talk about Tyler Pasher going the opposite direction. Tyler Pasher, what an incredible performance from a kid coming out of USL. Look, he was good in USL. Don't get me wrong. One of the best players in USL last year for Indy 11. But I did not expect him to be such a pivotal point for this offense and to step into that role comfortably. I thought Tyler Pasher was very nearly one of the best players on the pitch on Friday. And it only surprised me from the pure fact of this is Tyler Pasher, a USL player. And usually when we've brought in players from USL, it has not worked out the best for us. Hey, Mark, welcome back. Are you feeling a little better now? Got the stutters out of yourself?
And my power went out. I don't know what happened.
Oh, okay, yeah. That's fine. So I started talking about the Memo and Urruti partnership up top, and then of course that transitioned easily into the Tyler Pasher. Is quite the player, almost more so than I anticipated. Look, that trio of players up top, and that's Memo playing kind of a withdrawn shadow striker role almost, which, by the way, Darwin Quintero plays really well as well. With Maxi Urruti, it is going to be interesting to see how they continue to develop that because Memo came out of central midfield. And you have a winger available position out there that you can play someone other than Fafa Pico, who, by the way, I thought actually looked really good as well. You've got a starting four there: Memo, Urruti, Fafa Pico, and Tyler Pasher that honestly look like they can hang in just about against any team in this league from an attacking standpoint, putting pressure on defenses. I want your opinion on the foursome in particular, and your opinion on that particular partnership that's beginning to grow between Memo and Urruti.
Oh, I mean, obviously during the preseason they showed a lot of great connection with each other, especially Urruti scoring goals and Memo doing what he does best. So I think it's something great. Obviously Memo having the advantage of having a year under his belt under Tab, and then obviously having a couple of years in the Dynamo is finding a level of comfort. I think he feels like he's one of the leaders of the squad, so he needs to act accordingly, needs to perform accordingly to being one of the leaders of the squad. I'm not surprised with Memo. Urruti, like I said, Maxi Urruti, I mean, obviously we know he's scored goals for MLS, not a high prolific scorer for him and by any terms, but we're hoping to get some high level scoring from him, and then obviously 1-for-1, that's a good start. For him, I mean, I love the way he gets into the box. I'm not gonna lie, he gets into the box really well. He creates, he brings defenders away from other players to create shots for them as well. The Pasher role, obviously, with him doing what he's doing, he's super active in the first game. which I really enjoyed. He was everywhere, man. And I think he's one of those players that he knows he's playing at a higher level than what he played last year. So he's stepping up to that level. And I think that he's just going to keep getting better and better and better if given the opportunity by Tab. And I don't see why he wouldn't keep getting the opportunity, especially showing out the way he did the first game. So I'm very excited for that front three. Alongside with other players like Fafa. I mean, Fafa had a good game as well. I mean, unfortunately, he didn't score, but we see the speed that he carries, the way he can do with the ball, how he can distribute the ball as well. And we'll see, man. And then if we can get Darwin back into game shape, he'd be a great super sub or a rotational player when spots start here and there or whatever. So it'll be all great by then, hopefully. So, but like I said, it was against San Jose, so we'll take it with a little bit of grain of salt. It's not the biggest club, or the hardest club in the team. I think they were ranked alongside us as last place to win the MLS Cup as far as odds go in gambling terms. But this Portland game is going to be very interesting, and I think that this will showcase how much of a growth the team has gone from year one under Tab to year two.
I certainly agree. I even have it in my notes. It is easy, I think, to get a little extra hyped because of how well we played, especially early in that match. But this was San Jose. This was a team that had not played anything more than a single preseason match prior to this match, and it was against USL competition. It wasn't even MLS level competition. And so they were a team that showed how ill-prepared they were for this particular match. Along the same point, I think it's important to keep in mind, too, that what Fafa Pico does on that other side away from Tyler Pasher opens up Tyler Pasher to make those runs around his defender between the two, the outside defender and the center back, and pull the other guy away from Arudi, or pull the other guy away to give Memo a run into the box. Look, the way that Tab has implemented these front four creates opportunities across the line. And when if Darwin Quintero decides to get himself fit again and ready to play matches, there's an absolute opportunity for Darwin Quintero coming off the bench or otherwise to have significant impacts on these matches. You get a creative player like a Darwin Quintero linking up with a player like Maxi Arudi, or linking up with a player like Memo in this formation with the two wingers that they have. There's a ton of magic that can happen. Are we going to see it this season? I don't know, because it comes down to Darwin Quintero buying in. And I'm not certain Darwin Quintero at this point has bought in. Clearly, he didn't come into preseason match fit or even close to it. He didn't take fitness seriously, or if he did, he clearly didn't show it. He looked gassed the few times that you saw him out on the pitch in preseason. And for a player at his age to be in that position, it tells me he probably didn't work out as hard during the offseason as he probably should have. And he probably just said, oh, my body will figure it out. It's no big deal. With that being said, I want to give a shout out to four other players real quick. Number one, I want to give a shout out to Joe Corona in his first MLS match for the Dynamo. Looked incredible, in my opinion. He had a few very important key stops. He pivoted the ball incredibly well. He created opportunities. He made incredible passes. In fact, I believe he had the assist on Memo's goal. He was good at pivoting the ball out wide when he needed to. He was good at helping to create those opportunities without getting too far up the pitch. And when he needed to retreat to cover back on the defense, he was there to help kill the counterattack. It's hugely important, especially when you're now playing a true defensive mid formation. You need one of those D mids, one of those players to be a pivot, and Joe Corona is absolutely, without a doubt, that pivot. I also want to give a shout out to Tim Parker. Clearly, Tim Parker, you know why he was brought in. He was brought in for a combination of two things. Number one, some physical stoutness on that back line. And number two, to be a leader, not just along the back line, not just in front of Marich, not just behind the midfielders, but also to be a leader for the entire team. And Parker proved it. There were moments in that match that clearly Parker was that leader, vocally not afraid to go and talk to the referee when it was called for, and clearly he was willing to stand up for his players. And I applaud that so much because Boney, God bless his soul, is just not a physical player to that extent, and Parker is. Parker can back it up with the physicality, and it just, to me, when you have a center back that is that type of player, it's just a different feeling when a guy like that is back there in front of Marich. Finally, I want to, or no, I got two more. Sorry. I want to shout out Boney himself. Look, he was completely playing out of position. He is not a center back. I don't even know if he's ever played center back in his career anywhere for any team. But here he was thrown into a center back position outside of preseason because he did play there one match in preseason. But he was out of his position, and he looked, for the most part, pretty comfortable. But he definitely had those few nervy moments that you look out for. I think with the way that Boney played, I still think we're probably likely to see Fuenmayor out there at some point against Portland. My hope is Boney probably starts. My hope is that Fuenmayor at least gets a half out there to get some of those game minutes underneath him next to Parker, because it looks like Bartlow is not going to be available for a little while. Who we were really counting on, which is kind of crazy to think coming out of the MLS draft. But injuries happen, concussions happen. You have to give them time to heal. Lastly, my real important call out, and George, I hope you're listening. Marko Maric looked good to me. The one goal that was conceded, he had nothing he could do about that goal. That goal was an incredible shot by a player that nobody expected to have that level of a shot. The Frenchman, I don't even know his first name, but last name was Marie. I mean, what a shot. The rocket just into the corner of the goal. Just, again, nothing Maric could do about it. He looked good in the other opportunities he had to kill, the other saves he had to make. I thought his defense definitely helped him out, but that's what you expect, is your defense to be able to help you out. And having a better defense in front of him, having a center back in front of him who he knows he can trust in, it's going to create better chances for Maric to be in better positions overall. So those thoughts on any other players you want to give a shout out to, or anything like that, Mark?
No, I mean, yeah, for sure. Like, El Presidente, Oscar Boniek, obviously the fact that, he's out there starting for an, 8th consecutive season under the Dynamo. So great achievement for him. Not in his usual position, like you said, center back, but it's a good way to extend the career to go from a midfielder to a center back. So maybe it's something that he's interested in, extending the career a little bit. He didn't do too bad in that spot start. Hopefully it is just that, a spot start. We can get Fuenmayor back in, Bizama back in from injury, Bartlow, depending on his concussion issues, back training and things of that nature. But but the fact of the matter is, he stepped up. He came out there. He wore the, he represented really well. So shout out to him, Presidente. And just, like I said, overall great game for the guys, under the circumstances. I know the pitch was slippery. It was wet. That goal that was scored on by the Frenchman in San Jose was a fantastic goal. I mean, we were right behind it. And I saw it from as soon as he caught the ball. I was like, if this guy shoots, he has a really good shot. And when it went in, we were just kind of like, oh, but goals like that happen from time to time, but overall, pretty good game from Marko Maric. So I'm looking forward to seeing him grow and progress in his position as goalkeeper for the Dynamo. So we'll see, man. I mean, 1 for 1, 3 points. You can't ask for anything else. All you can ask for is the win and the 3 points, and that's what the Dynamo did, and that's what they achieved. And now we're on to Portland.
And that's exactly it. You can only play who the league puts in front of you to play. You can't opt to play a different team. That's not how this works. So you got to play who you play. And San Jose was the first team the Dynamo had to face, and they did what they needed to do. Just enough. Some would say there were chances for San Jose that Wando missed.
Yeah. I still don't understand how you missed that. We were right behind the goalkeeper.
He went into that mindset of U.S. men's national team against Belgium, man. It just felt so much like that miss. Just like, what? How? Open goal, goalkeeper nowhere in sight because he just got horribly, he had just saved the ball and it just bounced to Wando, and Wando just didn't have a quick enough reaction time to get it on frame. I mean, he had enough to kind of kick it, but it was nowhere on frame. Yeah. With that being said, let's talk Portland. So Dynamo versus Portland. We know that's coming up on Saturday. there's a couple important things to keep in mind regarding Portland. Number one, Portland are definitely a better test for this new look Dynamo than San Jose could ever hope to be. And it's not a knock against San Jose. It's just how good Portland are. Yeah. Some important things that I take away tactically from having watched Portland in the past, especially their match against Vancouver. You got to close on Valeri quickly. You cannot give Valeri space. I think towards the end of the match, especially late in that second half, the Dynamo tended to give a little bit of too much space to the San Jose players, especially their attackers. You got to close on them. If you're going to play that high press, you got to keep pressing. You can't let off the gas. You have to keep the pressure on them. Number two, you have to mark Darren Asprilla tight and physical. Look, this is a guy who is slippery and who will get behind your defense. At some point, Marco Maric is going to have to come up with a really big save to prevent Asprilla from getting a goal. However, keep in mind, Darren Asprilla plays very similar to how Memo did in that home opener. He's going to play off the forward, which is Franco Mara, if I'm not mistaken. He plays off their forward, off their striker, and he's going to come in for those opportunities. So it's on the Dynamo to make sure that they are very cognizant and aware, especially during the match, especially late, where Darren Asprilla is, where Diego Valeri is, and where the other Portland attackers are. And it's going to come down to Joe Corona, Matias Vera, and it's going to come down to Memo Rodriguez, even for good portions of this upcoming match, playing the same way they did against San Jose, closing those spaces, not giving them the extra room, making sure to keep that pressure on, making sure the press is being effective. There will be opportunities on goal. It's obviously very important we score when we have opportunities. It's an away match. The number one thing that's been a struggle for the Dynamo going back at least 10 seasons, it has been away record. We suck away. It's just the fact of the matter. It is time for us to change that. I think this match against Portland might be one of those opportunities to do so, but we have to play physical. We have to play hard, especially early. We cannot come out flat. We've got to press high and press hard, and we need to put their defenders, and we need to, especially their outside backs, and we need to put their goalkeeper under pressure early, because it's going to get in their heads, and it's going to give us opportunities to put those, especially a Rudy, to have those opportunities to run at a defender and get the defender to make a mistake and pounce on that mistake, and you score that goal. That can be all you need for that match. Go ahead, Mark.
And you could be catching Portland at a very, tentative time as well, because, obviously they will be looking forward to CCL during that week, midweek against Club America in the next round of the Champions League, which would be a really tough task for those guys. So we'll see what kind of lineup they show up. I'm still thinking that Portland's going to show up with a decent enough lineup, better than what San Jose put out there on the pitch. You mentioned all those players, but let's not forget about the Chara twins. Diego and Jimmy.
Oh yeah, Jimmy.
Yeah. Those guys, especially Jimmy. Having a great CCL, a hat trick in the last match. So those guys are flying high with a bunch of confidence. If they get the opportunity to play in that match, I highly expect those guys to be highly motivated and to want to continue that hot streak on, especially at home. So we'll see. I mean, it's going to be an interesting match for Dynamo for sure, regardless of what kind of team is placed out there for Portland. I don't, obviously, that's one of the disadvantages of an MLS team being in a CCL play in the beginning of the season, because you do have to kind of look ahead, and see, who you're going to rest, who you're going to play. But I do expect Portland to post a decent enough team, to defend home field advantage. So with that being said, we'll see. And like I said, with the Dynamo going with that, they should look at it as an advantage and try to take full opportunity of the fact that they are catching Portland at a, kind of an unfair advantage. But hey, you play the game that's in front of you, and hopefully the Dynamo take advantage of it and can pull out a win on the road, because we know we've seen very few of those the last decade or so.
Yeah, you're not wrong. So, George, give me just a second. I'm actually pulling up the stats right now for that match against San Jose, since you asked the question. How many shots we had? 17 shots total against San Jose, which is a large number of shots, 6 of which were on goal. So that's That's like about a third. Yeah, 33% on goal, which is not, it's not terrible. As far as shots from outside the box, we had one by Memo that was blocked. We had one by Urruti that was blocked from the very top of the box. One by Joe Corona that was off target, that was just outside the box. Another by Urruti that was the one where he turned just at the top of the box and shot it, and it kind of just dribbled to the goalkeeper. It was kind of a weak shot. Memo that had a shot off target that was probably 10 to 15 yards outside the box. Memo with another shot on target from outside the box in the 80th minute. That was also saved. Tyler Pasher had the one shot that was an absolute rocket of a shot that the goalkeeper did really well to save for San Jose. That was outside the box. And then and that was all from outside the box. So we had 7 shots from outside the box, which for us is a large number, comparatively speaking. And I think of those 7, let's see, that was blocked, that was off target, that was off target. I think we had 2 of those that were on target, so it's still, still a fairly decent number, considering had 7 from outside the box, and a couple of them were blocked too. So,
and considering the wet pitch as well, and the weather condition as well. So, but like I said, I'm looking for the Dynamo to take advantage of the fact that they're not going to face a full squad in Portland. So I'm thinking they're gonna pull out the win, man. I'm nothing too crazy. Maybe a 1-0 to win if they do win it, but I think that they're gonna shock a little bit and pull out the win for the guys this Saturday, which I really hope they do, because it'll be a nice treat for the fans, and especially going forward to the next home match against LAFC the week following.
Absolutely, and important too. I do want to add this as well. The Dynamo only had 12.5% of their passes as actual crosses, compared to 33% for San Jose. Why that's important is it shows you the Dynamo are even though they're going to play along the wings, they're not trying to just serve the ball into the box, hoping that an Urruti or a Memo or whomever can get on the end of that cross. What they're trying to do is they're trying to create short passes or long passes into the box, from outside, and trying to just find those spaces, those half spaces to make the turn and make the shot. And frankly, we saw it against San Jose. It can create the right opportunities that give you the best opportunity at goal. The other thing is, total team expected goals. Interestingly enough, San Jose edged us out with a 1.2 on expected goals versus us at 1.1. And that's off 8 shots to our 17 by San Jose. And then for as many shots as we had in the 6 shots on target, San Jose still had 4 shots on target. San Jose's expected goals definitely dramatically increased about the 78th, 79th minute, maybe the 80th minute there, or 82nd minute. That's probably 82nd minute. Dramatically jumped up from there after they scored their goal in the 74th minute. Again, it's just interesting to kind of look at these breakdowns and start to see things that we didn't necessarily see before, looking at things in particular. The other thing I want to call out is what an incredible passing percentage that Darwin Seren had in his 23 minutes. He had an 83.33% passing accuracy, which is absurd for an attacking player. Lassiter had 100% passing accuracy, but I don't think he really had many passes. He did have one across the box, but I digress about that. Even Pasher had a 68% passing accuracy for his full 90 minutes that he played. You kind of go through and realistically everybody, I think, except pretty much Fafa, Pico, and Lundqvist had a pretty decent passing game, above a 60% for just about everybody. Even Memo had a 64%. It was a good game overall. It was good to get out of the gate, and now we just need to keep that momentum, keep that push, and be willing. Wow, I didn't know that. So Boney, talking about Boney, he had an 86% duel percent. So that's aerial duels. He won 86% of his aerial duels. This guy is not tall. So for him to win 86% of his aerial duels means he was marking well as a center back. That's incredible to me. I didn't know that. Wow. Okay. Anyways, any other thoughts on that match, Mark?
No, it's, and it just shows the great level of depth that the Dynamo have now this season compared to last season. Obviously, you mentioned Seren, who came on for Corona after, he came out. He seemed like he was a little bit hurt at the end, but he came off and Seren came in. to have that level of a player, to come off the bench and to be able to facilitate the way he did with the and be as accurate on his passes the way he was, especially that late of the game, with going up against tired legs. That's a huge advantage for the Dynamo to have somebody like that and to create the attacking process from the defensive process. So like I said, hopefully they take full advantage of the fact that they're gonna play. I'm thinking a weaker Portland side, and they take full advantages and steal some points in Portland, man. I'm hoping for the win, but I mean, if we come out there with a tie, I'm not against that either.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I definitely want to. You go out in every match expecting to get expecting a win, playing for the win. You don't go out there playing for the draw for sure. I think we'll be able to tell from the lineup that that Tab picks whether he's going out there for a win or for a draw. But Portland are no slouches. I think it's going to be an entertaining game. I think it's going to be a fairly back and forth game match. A lot of attack both ways, and defense is having to come up big. I wouldn't be surprised if Portland have the majority of possession. It's something that they traditionally do. But they're coming off a loss against Vancouver, so they have something, an extra edge, I bet, to their play that they didn't have against Vancouver. And they're coming home. This is their home opener. Portland at home, or Portland away, I should say, for us, is not an easy place. I think the last time we got a win there was Morrow, in that moment in the playoffs. Look, we got to do it. We got to go there and we got to prove that we belong. And I guess we'll just kind of see how it goes. With that being said, though, Mark, I want to talk a little bit of MLS fantasy now. That was the weakest laugh I've ever heard. It's like Mark Godo, God, no. Let's talk fantasy.
I came out 5th place, my first time ever coming out.
That was solid. You did solid. I was intrigued. There were a lot of shocks, I think, for people in terms of week 1 in MLS fantasy. A lot of big players didn't come up big. A lot of smaller players did. Players that from teams that nobody expected came up really big. But in the battle of the co-hosts, I do get to say that I won this week, 3rd place overall in the Surge League. And Mark, as he noted, got 5th overall. It is interesting. Mark was only 9 points behind me, so he wasn't far off the pace there for sure. And in fantasy, 9 points is nothing. That's a single player. So we go into week 2. It's going to be interesting, Mark. I don't know if you've taken a look at who you're thinking about starting or anything like that, but I'll give you my starting lineup as of right now. This is based on just kind of what I'm expecting to have play out this week. I've got Maurer in goal from Moorer in goal from Frisco. I think we saw San Jose, how lackluster they were. Dallas should have no issue with them. I've got Tim Parker in the back line yet again. I started him last week. I'm going to start him again this week. Nat Burgess from FCD, only because he's my switcheroo, as they call it, because I do not expect him to play. Ryan Hollingshead from Dallas, because, again, I expect Frisco to have a good match against San Jose. Gutierrez from Vancouver. After the show that Vancouver put on against Portland, I expect them to do much the same to Toronto, who struggled again against Montreal. It'd be interesting to see how those two teams play. I just expect Vancouver to get the better of them, and frankly, if they're going to do that, a $5 million guy in Gutierrez is a good way to go. My midfield is Lucien Acosta from Cincinnati. Cincinnati shocked me to no end with how they played against Nashville. Thought Nashville would come out of that match easy. Look, you don't score 2 goals on Nashville without making a little bit of waves in the league. Go ahead, Mark.
It's amazing what a bona fide number 10 can do for you.
You're not kidding. And pieces around that to be able to give him opportunities too. It's not just him, but he's got other pieces to feed off as well. I got Joe Price from Colorado. They're playing Austin. Again, I have no faith in Austin whatsoever. Just in general, I expect Colorado to have an easy time, an easy go of it. And I think Price is the perfect midfield player for that opportunity. Stojanovic from Chicago. They're playing Atlanta. Atlanta has a great defense, but their attack is anemic right now. Stojanovic right now for Chicago. Barrett for Chicago I also have starting as a forward. Barrett and Stojanovic have a wonderful partnership in Chicago. They played really well in their first match. I expect them to continue that against Atlanta. As much as everybody touts Atlanta's defense, I think that Chicago can come away from there with a win. and in doing so can give my two guys some good points. I have Maxi Urruti yet again starting for Houston in my forward spot. I have all three forwards starting, by the way. And that's because, frankly, Max Urruti, how can you root against him at this point? And then I mentioned Beric, and then of course I have Cavallini as my third forward, who had a really good week last week against Portland, and I expect him to have another good week against Toronto. My bench is nobody is basically, it's a crappy keeper that it was just cheap. I didn't have to spend any money on. And then, of course, Marie from San Jose. I figure, hey, if I'm going to have a guy on the bench that might be able to just come out of nowhere and do something, why not? And then Ryan Leal from Nashville. They're playing Montreal. I don't expect him to have a big week, but if he does happen to have a big week, he had 15 points last week. Hey, why not, right? Like, put him on the bench, give him an opportunity with that switcheroo. And then my third is actually Tyler Pasher sitting on the bench. If he has a good week, hey, I'm primed and ready to get those extra points. So that's my starting lineup there, Mark. I'm giving you the heads up here. If you want to win this week, you're going to have to beat that lineup. It's going to be tough.
Yeah, I haven't looked at it yet. I'll make sure to look at it before we do the show, so that way we can go back and forth or whatever. But yeah, I mean, for the first week that I've ever played MLS Fantasy and not really knowing how to go about doing things, because one of the things that I couldn't figure out was how to change my formation. So I went with a 4-4-2, so that kind of hurt me. And then obviously one of my forwards, Diego Rossi, didn't play, so so I lost out on some points there as well. But yeah, I mean, fifth place for first time ever. I think that's a really good job. Just to pat myself on the back a little bit. But we'll see what happens. I'll be a little bit more focused on it this week. See what kind of formation, if I can figure out how to change the formation thing, and then if I can hopefully pick players that are not going to sit out.
It's a hard thing to do. It's hard to do in MLS because teams don't release their lineups until an hour before, and even then, sometimes there are surprises, and the players lock a date, lock the day of their match, usually an hour before their match, an hour before the first match of the week kicks off. And so you can't swap out players that are on your bench. You can't pull players from just the general pool of players after that. You have to have at least your starting lineup and then your 4 subs, and then you just have to play whatever sub is available for a player that doesn't play.
Let me give you my lineup from last week real quick, just to show you what I had last week. And I mean, and like I said, I had 3 players not play off this lineup. So, I was only 9 points away from Sean, and I think I could have made that up with those 3 players.
I had Carlos Vela starting, so if you want to keep talking about players not playing, I got 5 minutes out of Vela, so I don't want to hear nothing from you.
Hey man, okay. Well, my goalkeeper for last week was Brad Guzman. My back 4 was Tim Parker, Warm Gore from Columbus Crew, Ike Opara, who didn't play for Minnesota United.
Mm-hmm.
Eddie Segura for LAFC. Midfield, Sebastian Lenglet, Lucas Celaraya, Eddie Reynoso for Minnesota United.
Minnesota, yeah.
Alejandro Pozuelo, who didn't play, who I think would have made up the 9 points by himself, didn't play. And then my start fighting 2 was Zardis from Columbus Crew, and obviously Diego Rossi, who didn't play as well. So my bench was. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead.
My bench was, my backup goalkeeper was Dynamo legend himself, Chris Stites, from DC United. Sam Junqua, Tyler Pasher, and Michelle from Orlando City.
Nice.
However you want to.
Yeah.
I think I had a fairly good team, man. If everybody would have played, I think I would have done some damage, but.
I did.
I know the Vela situation was a big downer for everybody, because I think a lot of people had Vela on their team, but I just I think Rossi's on just gonna go on a tear this season. That's why I picked him over Vela, because they basically cost the same. So, but yeah, that Vela thing kind of hurt a lot of people.
Yeah, we'll get to that here in just a second. Parts unknown. Thanks for asking. My lineup last week, the 59 points. What's very interesting, Mark, and you'll get a kick out of this. My switcheroo was worth 9 points because I had Christian Roldan on my bench, who was exactly 9 points. That's where I got my extra 9 points from. So in goal, I had Joe Willis starting again. I thought Nashville versus Cincy. This is an easy win for Nashville. This should be an absolute easy, destruction of Cincinnati. Cincy proved me wrong. I didn't think they had enough. They have enough. And so Joe Willis was worth a whole whopping 2 points. Tim Parker was worth a whole whopping 2 points. Lovitz from Nashville was worth 8, so that was a good move by me. Fontas from SKC was worth 5. Those are decent points for a defender. Mukhtar was worth 5 points from Nashville. Valeria was only worth 4. I expected more from Valeria. He let me down. Montero from Philly was worth 5 points. My forward line, Carlos Vela, worth 1 point. Thanks again, Bob Bradley. F you. Franco Jara from FC Dallas was worth 2 points. And Maxi Rudy, my cap, by the way, really good move by me, was worth 16 because you get double points for your captain. So he's actually worth 8 points on the week. I got 16 for him. I felt pretty good about that at the end of the week. This week is bench players. We're just talking about how many points bench players get. There's a thing called a switcheroo in MLS Fantasy. This is going to be MLS Fantasy 101. There's a thing called a switcheroo. What it is you play a player in your starting lineup that has the lowest likelihood of starting for their team, which means they're not, or even getting any minutes. If they get no minutes and they don't play at all for their team throughout the week, then your highest, the substitute with the highest points gets automatically substituted in. So Nat Burgess for FCD did not play. He's a $4 million player that I would have essentially had on the bench. I knew he wasn't going to play. So I started him, knowing full well that he wouldn't play. My bench of Zarek Valentin, Christian Roldan, and Jack McGlynn, and the only reason I had McGlynn on there is because I knew he wouldn't play either. But that meant that I was going to get the better point total from either Zarek Valentin or Christian Roldan. And it is up to whoever plays better that they're the ones that get automatically substituted in. You want to use your switcheroo in that way, and you want to have 2 players on your bench that you think could have good matches so that you can take the better of the 2 matches. And again, Christian Roldan, 9 points, definitely helped me get to the 3rd place last week. Huge shout out to Sergio and J Lo, who tied for 1st place last week in the Surge League with 70 points. I mean, whopping me by 11 points, and the rest of the league wasn't even close. I expect a better week from me this week. I really do, but it's always a flip of the coin as to how things go. One word of advice to anybody playing MLS Fantasy: always remember your best bet is to go with the team or the players from the home team in a match, because they typically will have the better of the chances. They will have more points in fantasy, unless it's a big superstar player like a Carlos Vela. With that being said, there were a couple of questions asked about a couple of players. One was going to be one was in relation to injury updates for Minor, and the other was for Ethan Bartlow. Ethan Bartlow, as far as I understand it, is still out with a concussion, still nursing a concussion, still going through concussion protocol. He has not returned to practice as of yet. Again, there's still a couple of days this week for him to get into practice, but I still wouldn't expect him to start. Minor Figueroa is still out, related to what we believe is the COVID-19 protocols. It's undisclosed at this point, but my suspicion is it's something related to COVID-19 protocols. Probably had to self-quarantine for 2 weeks is my guess. We'll see him back out there at some point in the next week or two. That leaves Fuenmayor, who has been back at practice this week. As of, I think, today or yesterday was back at practice. That gives him 3 days of practice, 4 days of practice, technically. Well, I have 3 days of practice before the match on Saturday. Again, I don't expect him to start Fuenmayor necessarily, but I do expect that we might see a half out of Fuenmayor, maybe 15 minutes, something like that. I'm comfortable, I think, having Boney play some minutes at center back again. He looked good enough to handle it again for a second week in a row. But it definitely hurts having, again, another year in a row, we have 3 center backs on the injury list. You can't afford that to happen very often for any team, and to have it happen so many years in a row, you start wondering about the fitness crew and strength and conditioning crew. What's going on, man? What's going on? It's crazy.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, hopefully the whole concussion thing with Bartlow, gets dealt with, and, hopefully the kid's doing all right. Minor, I mean, I expect Minor to come back already. He probably, I know he's going to be in international duty here pretty soon, so obviously I know he wants to rev up and be in shape for that as well. But yeah, man, but the biggest concern for me is Alejandro Fuenmayor. obviously I want to make sure that guy, I've been a Familiar guy for since he got here, man. I like his size. I like I like his physicality. I think he has the body to be a really good center back. Not the fastest guy, obviously, but but if you're a CB, you don't need that. Georgie over here is shouting out Carlos Salcedo. We'll see. I guess I mean that he's a name that's still for some reason still kind of linked to the Dynamo for whatever reason, and CB is the spot that we're kind of piecing together here right now. So to play alongside Parker, so we'll see. I mean that would have to be a summer transfer window signing for the Dynamo, and obviously it won't be a cheap one either. I wouldn't think. I'm not trying to pay $22 million for a defender, but we'll see what happens, I guess.
So there was an interview with Tab where this is coming from earlier this week that says the Dynamo are looking to add a player in the center back position. Clearly, they understand that they need another center back. The team are going to be down to one center back, which is minor for international, or going to be down a center back, which is minor for international duties, possibly for the majority of the entire middle of the season. So look, I mean the fact is, the reason Carlos Salcedo has been linked to the Dynamo is there's got to be some, you don't get rumors like that without there being some validity to them. And I know that we've heard the 22 million touted out there. I've heard 13 million as the transfer fee offer, whatever it is out there. 16 million, I think I saw as well. I just don't, to me, it doesn't really, it doesn't really matter what that transfer fee is, because that fee is, it's reported by multiple, people. It's the guy that said, I think 22 million or whatever it was, hard to verify. That was the actual amount. My anticipation is probably under 10 is what the Dynamo are hoping for, angling for. And frankly, look, at the end of the day, if you can get Carlos Salcedo for under 10 million on a transfer fee, that's your starting center back paired next to Tim Parker for the rest of this season and probably a good 2 to 3 seasons after that. That's a solid center back pairing, and that's going to be tough for any team to break down. You've seen it in NWSL with the Dash. If you have a good center back pairing, it is difficult to even get opportunities at goal, let alone to even be able to get opportunities to look at goal. I think the same can be true in MLS. Just got to have it happen. So everybody, you know what? If you're into lighting candles and praying vigils, by God, do it now, because we need it more than ever to get that signed, sealed, and delivered as quick as possible. Because as Tab noted in that interview, we are going to be down a center back. And right now, down a center back is very unfortunate, because that means Boney is playing more minutes at center back. Not that I don't like it. I just don't think he can last a whole season there.
Yeah, obviously, it's a position of need, and then obviously, the fact that we are being linked with such a high profile player, in this region, it's a lot of excitement, for us as a fan base, because we normally don't get linked with a player of that caliber or that price range. Obviously, I think the 22 million is outrageous.
Oh yeah, no way.
The 16 million prior is a little bit far fetched, but I mean, But obviously you're worth whatever anybody's willing to pay. So I mean, if
we say it all the time, I think even more to that. Yeah, even more to that point too. I think and the reason why I feel like there's some real legs to this rumor is you just in the offseason, you basically went and got Joe Corona, and you got him in a way that basically you took him from another team, and because he wanted to come here and play. And he wanted to come here and he wanted to play for Tab. And, that's a player that has links to Liga MX. That's a player that probably knows people that Carlos Salcedo is close with. That's a player that gives you an in with Carlos Salcedo. It's something nobody is talking about, but it's a player that gives you an opportunity to just lure Carlos Salcedo here. And all I'm saying is if Joe Corona and Tab team up a little bit, there's absolutely got to be something to this rumor. And if there is, I am on board for Carlos Salcedo as long as it's not more than 10 to 12 million. I'd even be willing to pay 12. Look, the guy is worth it. And a center back that's worth that amount of money you need right now, if you're the Dynamo, your attack is not hurting too terribly bad. Eventually, I want to upgrade. But right now, perfectly fine with that. And that's the move you got to make.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like I said, I've stated prior, everybody was a little bit kind of worried about paying New York Red Bulls $1 million for Tim Parker if all the stipulations are met. I hope, like I said, I hope he meets it all, because that means that he did a fantastic job, and we got the player that we were aiming to get. You don't go and pay money to get a sorry player. The reason you pay the money that you pay is because you're getting a player of quality, somebody who's gonna help your squad. And if Salcedo comes in here and pair him up with Parker and transform the Dynamo into a top 5 defense in the league, then he's worth every penny that they spent.
Absolutely. So real quick, we have about 5 minutes left, which is just perfect. It's time for predictions and bold predictions. Okay. So we'll start with just the regular prediction. Portland versus Dynamo at Portland. What you got?
I'm going to go 1-0 Dynamo.
1-0? Wow, that's
yeah, because like I mentioned earlier, just because the fact that they're going to have they're going to be looking forward to CCL play against the Club America, which obviously is one of the top contenders to lift up the Champions League. So Portland is going to give their all to that. You know how MLS plays against Liga MX when it comes to this competition. They want to showcase, so they go out with a bang in that competition. So it kind of affects their playing domestically from the get-go. So that's why I'm giving them the 1-0 advantage.
I didn't consider the CCL play, even though that did come up earlier. I think I'm going to go another 2-1 victory for the Dynamo. No, you know what? I hate to do this. I'm going to go 2-2 or 2-2 draw. I want to believe 2-1, but I think Portland have enough attacking power that 2-2 is fair. I'm okay coming away with this match with a draw. I want to go out there to play to win, but I'm also realistic, and a draw in this second match feels comfortable to me. 2-2 draw, I think, is pretty good. With that being said, I see 2-1 Dynamo. I see 3-1 Dynamo from George. I see 2-2 draw from Parts Unknown. Hey, we're right on the same wavelength on that one. Nestor, if you want to throw yours out there, if you're still around. I'm guessing you are, because it's almost time. Let's go bold predictions, Mark. What's your bold prediction for Portland?
Bold prediction for Portland. It's going to be an own goal.
By for us or against us?
No, well, I said 1-0 Dynamo. The Dynamo
so it'd have to be us. Yeah. Wow. That's a pretty damn bold prediction, actually. Wow. Valeri gets a penalty kick. Like, he scores a penalty. I know that's not a huge, really bold prediction, but the bold prediction comes in from the penalty. He gets it off a handball in the box, and it's one of those controversial handballs in the box where it's like ball to hand, not hand to ball. But for some reason, the ref calls it, and VAR doesn't overturn it. I guess we'll see how that goes. And I think that actually levels it 2-2, in stoppage time, basically. George says, bold prediction, Pasher scores a goal of the week goal. I would be here for that. That would be incredible. Also of note, real quick before we end the show, Copa Tejas, which is the unofficial supporters trophy cup that will be awarded to the MLS, NWSL /USL, any of those 3 league teams from within Texas, based on points per game. Against how does that work for a team like the Dash? The Copa. Sorry, there's two trophies. Man, that's confusing as hell. The Copa Tejas Cup is the cup between Austin FC, Houston Dynamo, and FC Frisco. Is that correct, Jeff? Jeff will correct me here. Division 1 Copa Tejas is between those 3 teams. It's the MLS division, and that is just between the team that comes away basically with the best record against those 2 opponents specifically. It's a you play them twice throughout the season, and then Copa Tejas Shield is between MLS, USL, and NWSL, and that's based on points per game or points per match right now. Which, by the way, little known fact, guys, the Dynamo are currently leading the standings because they have the best points per match right now, which is average points. So hey, if we keep winning out, I mean, we win Copa Tejas Shield. Don't even have to go to playoffs. We've already got hardware, right? That's how that works. It's awarded specifically by the supporters groups of those clubs within Texas. I think it's really cool the supporters groups are doing that. I think it's awesome. Anyways, that's all I've got, Mark. It's about time to sign off for the night, but good show, good stuff. Any closing thoughts, closing remarks, closing thoughts?
Yeah, guys. I mean, obviously, for those who are interested, I mean, there's a watch party, pitch 25, with the Surge and Hustle Town. You know, all those guys out there at 9:30 for the Portland Timbers game on Saturday. You know, go out there, man. Support, man. You know, whether you're part of the supporter group or not, man. You know, get to know your fellow Dynamo fans. It'll be a joy to have you guys out there. You know, and check that out. Myself, I won't be there this week. I was there last week for the opening match, and I will be there for the LAFC match the next week. Sean, you said you were going to be there?
Yeah, I will be making the celebrity appearance, if you will. No, I'm just kidding. I'll be making the appearance.
Go out there and shake hands with Sean, man.
I will be shaking hands. No kissing of babies this week. COVID's still a thing. But I will be shaking hands. Well, actually, I'll be giving fist bumps. We don't shake hands right now. I'll be giving fist bumps out. Yeah, I will be out there this Saturday at pitch 25. I will not be out there for the May 8th match, unfortunately, May 1st match. Sorry, May 1st match against LAFC. I have prior engagements to deal with. But I will be out there this Saturday. So if you guys are out there, come say hi at pitch 25. I'll be out there hanging out with the Surge, Jeff, Sergio, Nestor, and all of the rest that are showing up. It's going to be a good time. Lots of beer flowing. I can guarantee you that. Lots of food to be shared, I'm sure, as well. Just come have a good time, say hi, and hang out and have a good time. Go Dynamo. Man. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in. We appreciate it. Make sure, real quick, got to do the rundown. Make sure you check us out on Twitch, twitch.tv/Generation Orange. Make sure you check us out on Anchor.fm when I can remember to do the actual audio, Anchor.fm/Gen Orange. Check us out on Twitter. That's at Gen Orange Radio. Mark is at Chase Segovia. I am at Sean Ringrose. Make sure you check out the La Banca podcast. You can check them out on YouTube. I'm sure we'll have the link posted. I'm sure Mark will be happy to post that from the Gen Orange account sometime later this week when they go, not later this week, early next week when they go live. And then, of course, make sure you check out Nestor as well at LilNest25 on Twitter. And check out SGL. It's getting ready to start back up here in the next couple of months with a really cool thing you guys need to pay attention to. It's going to be awesome. With that being said, guys, hold it down. H-Town.